Hello and welcome to Dishelved with Adam White. Today I'm going to talk to you about a book that I thought was going to be part of GarbAugust because I read about it in Pulp Horror magazine, and I thought, oh well, maybe I'll do one more GarbAugusty book. And I started reading and I was like, this isn't trashy at all. It was really literary and just a really good book. And the book is Cold Moon Over Babylon by Michael McDowell. And like I said, I read about it in Pulp Horror magazine, so I thought this is probably going to be a trashy book, and I'm interested in reading it. And they kind of make it sound that way, but when I read it, I was like, this isn't trashy at all. And you can sort of see it here on my Kindle, which is a miracle for once that I can show you the cover. And this was the first thing that tipped me off, was that it has an art cover by Mike Mignola, and that's the first thing that tipped me off that this was a classy book. Because if you have a Mike Mignola cover, then you know it's going to be class. It's a really great cover. It was the 20th anniversary edition. I think it came out in 1980 originally. And the story basically is about these blueberry farmers, a grandmother and her grandson and granddaughter, and the granddaughter gets killed right at the beginning. I mean, it tells you that if you look on Amazon in the little description, it tells you that, so I'm not giving anything away. But you don't know who killed her, and the grandmother and the brother spend the rest of the time trying to, get people to solve this mystery because they want justice for his sister and her granddaughter. And they have a blueberry farm that is less and less profitable each year. They're in debt to the bank. Some of the other characters are the guy who owns the bank, but he's kind of an invalid and in bed most of the time. And his two sons, his one son, Nathan, runs the bank now, and he doesn't like his sons either. And his other son, Ben, doesn't do much of anything. He's just kind of a layabout and lives off his father's money. Uh, there's also a sheriff and his daughter, and his daughter acts as like a part-time nurse to the old man who is the invalid. And they also have Nina, who is a kind of a care person for the old man as well. And those are all the main characters, and it mainly focuses on the grandmother and grandson, and Evelyn and Jerry, and their quest for justice for the granddaughter, Margaret. And about 30% in, Michael McDowell drops a bomb on you for the story that's going on and introduces what looks to be a supernatural element to the book, because it's been fairly straightforward up to that point. And you start to get the sense that something else is going on here. Now, they also live in their house, the Evelyn and Jerry and Margaret's house is right by the Styx River, which, if you know anything about the Styx River, that's probably bodes ill for the people that are around it. which it turns out because of Margaret getting killed there. And the town they live in is called Babylon, hence Cold Moon over Babylon. And so, like I said, about 30% in, he drops a bomb on you, and then, which I just didn't see coming, and then you follow then based on that. Now, in today's world, the bomb that he drops on you would have been a simple fix for uh, law enforcement officials, but this was 1980, so they were limited by the fact that it was 1980 and it was a small town in the Florida Panhandle, and they had very limited resources. So you have to keep that in mind when you're reading the book, because, of course, cell phones alone would have solved a lot of problems in the book, but there was no such thing back then. So you got to keep that in mind when you're reading it. And so you go on and you continue in the quest for, who did this to the girl, who killed her. And you bring in a teacher that she was helping out, and the principal of her school, and her husband, who's a lawyer. And, they kind of factor in a little bit, later on in the book. And they're trying to make a case against somebody without any evidence. And then somebody else gets blamed for the murder. And you're just never sure who it is that's doing it. Well, then about 60% in, and I loved being able to give the percentages because of it being on Kindle, he does something else that I just did not see coming in the book. And I was like, this can't be happening. There's no way that this is happening in this book. And it did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could not believe what happened about 60% of the way in. And I was like, what are we going to do now in the book? I mean, it was so shocking. And so you also find out who did the murder of Margaret before, you as the reader find out before the people in the book find out. And you get some other stuff that comes out that just, you're like, man, this is just ruthless. And it was it had more supernatural elements, but then you're left wondering, is this just an imagination of somebody with a guilty conscience, or is it really supernatural? And you're left kind of wondering throughout the rest of the book whether this is really something supernatural or not. And I won't say which it is, but at the very end, you get an answer to that. Just like literally at the very end. And it was just a really good book. I could hardly put it down. Yep, lost my... There we go. I had a hard time putting it down to take breaks. It was an excellent, excellent novel. Not GarbAugusty at all. Like I said, I thought going into it that it would be, but it wasn't. Michael McDowell wrote several novels, and he probably, the most heard of thing he'd done is he wrote the screenplay for Beetlejuice, which is a great movie. But this novel was excellent. Very literary, very suspenseful. Like I said, a lot of it, especially in the first half, just kind of deals with the daily lives of these characters, but there's always this tension that's there. And he does a really good job with that. And it permeates the book, especially as it moves on further and further into the book. The tension just mounts up, and it's amazing. He did a fantastic job. I'm really looking forward to reading more by Michael McDowell. And it was just, like I said, you just didn't see some of the stuff coming that was in this. It was just really haunting, uh, really suspense filled book. And I really enjoyed it all the way through the end. I love how it ended. And it was a really, really good book. If you like horror, if you like literary horror especially, this is definitely a book for you. If you like horror at all, you ought to read this book because it was really surprising, really good, and just a fantastic read. So that's all I'm going to say about it this week. But you should definitely read this book because it's very good. Like I said, it's not GarbAugusty at all. Uh, I really didn't know what to expect going into it, but it was really, really good. A really good book. And you should give it a shot. It's obviously available on Kindle, and I'm pretty sure it's in paperback too. And like I said, it's got that great Mike Mignola cover, so you know it's classy. And thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you guys again next week.